हे मोरा सैया बोलावे रात नदिया 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 पैरी बगे नदिया पैरी बगे बादर रे अरज गरज बरसन लागे बादर रे अरज गरज बरसन लागे बिजुरी चमक जिया डेरात बादर रे अरज गरज बरसन लागे बिजुरी चमक जिया डेरात बादर रे This is typically what we are singing. It's a question answer. संगीत में जो हम गा रहे हैं वो इसका जवाब अपने हाथ से दे रहे हैं. ममरे धनी धरे रे धनी ध ममरे धनी ध सारे रे रे म म प सारे म रे म प म प नि ध म प सा ध नि Now the next song, so like you've heard, like we're from Banaras. तो बनारस कबीर दास जी की नगरी है. And we have a lyric from Kabir Das ji. We're trying to sing this in a classical way for you. I hope you guys like it. दास जी कहते हैं, जो सुख पायो जो सुख पायो राम भजन जो सुख पायो राम भजन में, सो सुख नाही मेरे में। मोरे आखिर ये तन खाक मिलेगा, आखिर ये तन खाक मिलेगा, काफिरत मगरूरी में हो, काफिरत मगरूरी में। मन लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में, मन लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में, मन लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में, मन लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में। गा 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 मेरो यार फकीरी में मन लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में मन लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में रे 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 गा 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 मा 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 बा 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 गा रे गा मा बा गा रे गा रे दा रे 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 गा मा गा 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 मा 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 गा रे गा मा गा रे गा 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 मा 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 बा 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 सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा सा दा नी नी दा दा बा बा मा मा मन लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में 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 लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में लागो मेरो यार फकीरी में मन लागो Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Itihasa. Thank you for that very lovely and lively performance. I don't know about others, but I surely was tapping my feet to your tunes. Thank you so
Thanks
much
a
for
lot.
the lovely performance. Can we please have a huge round of applause for Itihasa Live? You know, they say without music, life would be a mistake. And this is a living example, perhaps, of that sentiment that musicians across the world truly feel, and that's what they want to spread amongst their audiences. That's what we've witnessed today with this absolutely brilliant, stellar performance put up by Itihasa Live. What a talented group, Itihasa. Many thanks for making this evening all the more special. You know, we're here to actually honor and recognize the contribution of India's sustainability visionaries, but there couldn't have been a better start, truly, to the evening. Thank you so much. I will once again take this opportunity to welcome all our esteemed guests and delegates to the third edition of News 18's Green Ribbon Champions, our flagship initiative that honors remarkable efforts by organizations and individuals working to create a greener planet. Before we move forward, I want to extend heartfelt gratitude to our partners, our on-ground partners, Sampurna Advertising and Power Grid, our jute partner, National Jute Board, and associate partners, Gale and Reliance Industries Limited. Your support has made this event truly possible. Well, according to the 19th Global Risks Report 2024, presented at the World Economic Forum in Davos, environmental risks continue to top the list of global concerns. Extreme weather events, biodiversity loss, and critical changes to our ecosystem, which are all consequences of climate change, are now impacting all forms of life on Earth, with some consequences being potentially irreversible, as we all know. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals provides us with a clear blueprint for mitigating these risks. They urge us to rethink how we can consume energy, how we travel, and for that matter, what we eat. Simple practices like recycling and reusing can make a tremendous difference, giving a strong push to the circular economy. With climate change posing a critical and imminent threat, these actions have become more urgent than ever. As our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, wisely said, and I quote, "For us, protection of the environment is an article of faith. We have natural resources because our previous generations protected these resources. We must do the same for our future generations," unquote. We're witnessing a global shift as people from all walks of life wake up to the reality of climate change and the need for collective action. Sustainable living is now the new normal. Corporate leaders are increasingly embracing sustainable growth as essential for harmonious coexistence. And amid this wave of change, News18 Network's Green Ribbon Champions stands as a beacon of hope. This initiative is a call to action, recognizing the businesses and individuals who have taken bold steps towards creating a greener world. From sustainability projects to afforestation efforts, biodiversity protection, waste management, and renewable energy, Green Ribbon Champions celebrates those who are leading the charge towards a more sustainable future across diverse fields and industries. Now let's move to the first session of the evening, ladies and gentlemen, where we'll be exploring India and its climate diplomacy. India's global climate stance has evolved significantly, shifting beyond the traditional United Nations frameworks to more agile mechanisms where it plays a crucial role in shaping and influencing positive climate outcomes. To discuss this pivotal theme of India's climate diplomacy, we have with us an esteemed panel today. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Akhilesh Singh, Project Head of NTPC, Bongaigaon, Mr. Hisham Mundol, Chief Advisor for Environmental Defence Fund in India, also Mr. Saurabh Kumar, Vice President, India at Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. Gentlemen, I would request you to please join us on the stage. We also have Mr. Karthik Ganesan, Fellow and Director of Strategic Partnership at the Council of Energy, Environment and Water. I will be moderating this discussion with our esteemed panel, and without much ado, sir, please be seated. Can we first have a huge round of applause for the gentlemen joining us here this evening? There are a lot of issues that we need to discuss, and perhaps within limited time. So we're going to touch upon all the important aspects one by one. I want to first up begin with Mr. Mundol. You know, sir, when we talk about world affairs, when we talk about the critical world diplomacy that world leaders across the world today want to give importance to, we do know that the most serious world affairs are brought onto the table. Interestingly, climate diplomacy is one such aspect that has taken center stage today. You know, in the Indian context, I want to first up understand from you, what do you make of India's stance on climate diplomacy? Where does India stand on climate diplomacy today? And where does climate diplomacy feature in India's foreign policy?
Sure, and thanks for having me and the rest of the panel and everyone who's joining. You know, one striking feature about how India has conducted itself on the climate stage is sometimes India gets criticized for not being the most glamorous player on the climate stage. We don't land up and make the fanciest commitments. But what's striking is we make commitments that we stand by. And I contrast this with some other countries. So the US under Obama signs the Paris Agreement, Trump walks out, Biden walks back in, heaven knows what will happen in December. You don't need a tectonic figure like Trump. The UK rolled back on its net zero commitments. It's, climate action needs a steady hand much more than these dramatic spikes. So I think that's certainly one, it comes from a natural position of leadership. The second aspect that reflects on India's approach is we have to import a lot of the energy, the fuels that are required for energy. And like it or not, that does influence our geopolitical outlook, the kind of partnerships that we have. The big push of the government on renewables is as much about economics as it is about the environment, as it is about national security. And that's not a bad thing. The more renewables we get, if we are able to be in a stronger position geopolitically, that's positive. The third aspect is you have very few countries who can credibly stand up and speak as the voice of the global south. And that's a role that India plays well. India plays it authentically, and India is welcoming enough, and our relationships are not as complicated as some of the other global majors for us to welcome a lot more, smaller, more vulnerable countries.
Okay. A couple of important, interesting aspects being spoken of by you, and I will get into that in greater detail in just a bit. But if I could, now talk about India's role as far as this entire momentum is concerned, because we've seen change, we've seen India also slowly rise to the occasion, and today it's being spoken of as the biggest leader, which is, like you said, voice of the global south. Mr. Kumar, with pride today we can say that India is a proactive climate change actor. India is headed in that direction. I wanted to ask you, how India has been central to the climate change order, especially since the negotiations first began, and which, remember, ladies and gentlemen, was in 1992.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here. Let me begin by saying that why it is important for India to do what it is doing right now in the context of the global south. India has said that we will become a developed country by 2047, which is a little over 20 years from now. Now, if you look at any developed country in the past, including China, energy has been the essential ingredient of any economic growth. All these countries have developed using cheap fossil fuels. What is India now required to do? Can India follow the same path? Absolutely not. 1.5 billion people with our energy intensity increasing, doubling, tripling. I don't think this world will remain a place where we can all stay. Therefore, India has to show a path of development using sustainable, clean energy. And that is the difference between what the other developed countries have done and what India is already showing. And therefore, if you see what India has done is set up two international intergovernmental entities, International Solar Alliance, basically to show to the, basically help the global south in their pursuit towards cleaner and a greener future based on what has worked very well in India. And India has done phenomenally well as far as renewable energy and energy efficiency is concerned. So I think India's and the G20 summit last year, the Delhi Declaration, is all pointing towards the fact that, yes, India is now a very, very loud voice and a responsible voice for the global south. Insofar as the negotiations are concerned, I think they have evolved over a period of time. It was essentially, if you recollect, the Kyoto Protocol was largely saying common but differentiated responsibility, which means the polluter pays principle. Not that it has been diluted completely, but it is also a recognition of the fact that, yes, there is a polluter pays principle, but the developing countries also need to possibly do something on their own, largely for the issues, as he mentioned, renewable energy is not just good for, because it is clean, it serves the energy security of the nation as well. So that, I think, is the new path that India is charting for the global south.
Okay, lovely. We would all agree that India has come quite far in its commitment in tackling climate change, and that's why we're here to really talk about the position India finds itself in and what really is the plan in place for India. And to take it forward, Mr. Ganeshan, who better than you as a researcher to tell us what are the several nuances that need to be spoken of, especially ever since United Nations the agreement which was signed in 2019. How far as a country have we come from that moment in this fight?
So the Paris Agreement, which was signed in 2015, was sort of done very early on in the current government's tenure. It was a momentous occasion where I think they required the support of India to really push through the some of the commitments that were actually made, and to get everybody to come onto the common platform of committing to what is called nationally determined commitments, which was not something that was the practice earlier, right? There was this concept of Annex 1, Annex 2 countries, and there were targets that were set, whereas we moved on to this notion of how can we get countries to commit to targets that are suitable to them, that are in line with their national circumstances. And India was certainly a champion of this at that time. And when we made our nationally determined NDCs known just in the run-up to COP21, it was clear that we were punching well above our weight. We made this commitment for 2030, even back then, of 2022 actually, of 175 gigawatt of renewable energy, and significant investment in ensuring that we are offsetting carbon. So in that sense, India made it known to the world that despite being at the levels of per capita income that we were trying to do more than what any other country did at similar per capita incomes. We also put in place, I think, the institutional architecture through actions that happened even before this current government, which was the National Action Plan on Climate Change way back in 2008. And between 2008 and 2015, of course, we faced a lot of backlash for being sort of party poopers in the way that we were not willing to sign on to some of the terms that were, being negotiated in that period. And that's one of the reasons why it went down the path of NDCs, where, they couldn't come to a common agreement of what was the target that everybody should hit, and then agreed to, okay, it has to be nationally determined. And subsequently, the way we've ratcheted up our targets to, to the 2030 ones that currently are in play, of 500 gigawatt of renewable, non-fossil energy, 50% of our capacity from non-fossil and renewable actually, and a significant amount of, as I said, of sequestration, has all demonstrated that we are doing the right thing more so than many other countries have and done. In fact, we are also well on our way to achieve some of those when it comes to emissions intensity reduction targets. That was originally at between 31 and 33%, and I think even by 2021, we had achieved something to the tune of about 22% had already been achieved. So in many ways, I think one of the things that India has done very successfully, I mean, it might sound a little cheeky, right? We've kind of under-committed and overachieved, right? Because we know that we're capable of doing a lot more, but notwithstanding all of that, the latest, intervention that we've made, which is of the LIFE mission, and trying to popularize that even at the G20 platform to sort of demonstrate that it's not just about large commitments from government, but it's also about involving the average population, the person on the streets, and how their lives can be an example for everybody else to do the right thing. So, and I think this was something that India promoted significantly through G20, and hopefully, this will ring a bell with the Western world, where there is this lack of understanding of the ethos behind the Indian lifestyle. While many within India itself, I think, perhaps don't practice it, it's probably an opportune moment for a lot of us, who are privileged to take stock of what is it that we are doing, to follow the PM's message on life.
It is so wonderfully put by you that today India is truly committed to that cause and perhaps has overachieved, while so much was not expected of India. But Mr. Singh, you have over 30 years of experience in the power sector. we're talking about commitment, no commitment, and I think everyone here would agree is easy. India is having to fulfill its climate commitments while prioritizing its own development. How do you think we're being able to achieve that? Because India has to keep in mind its own core interests as well.
Actually, as we go for the better efficiency of the power plant, with the same coal we are generating more electricity and reducing the CO2 emission. That is the one part. And NTPC as a whole now has started its journey from subcritical to supercritical and ultra supercritical. The ultra supercritical technology, the efficiency of the power plant has increased to 41.5%. Initially, its journey started from 35% to 36%. So 4 to 5% increase in the power plant efficiency reduced the CO2 emission by 8% to 9%. And we have decided that we have to move and we have to use our own coal. The country has to move. The development has to go on with the available resources. Whatever the developed countries are there, they have gone through the same path. And today, they should be advocating us with the new technology, enforcing us. By doing this, we will be able to achieve this. So, we are just going in the direction so that our efficiency of the power plant is increasing. NTPC's commitment toward the renewable energy is that after 2030, we will be 50% of our total installed capacity will be from the renewable, in the form of solar, in the form of hydro, form of RE, and differently, other than this, we are also going for the small hydros, and we are proceeding towards the nuclear power plants. So by doing this, our commitment towards reduction of the CO2 will be there. And we are not only NTPC, but the other public sectors also are doing in the same direction. Just like we are going for the hydrogen technology. In the Leh and Ladakh, we are just producing the hydrogen. And from there, this hydrogen will be the source of energy for our future India. Secondly, we are capturing the CO2, which is coming out of as a flue gas, as a methanol. And methanol will be used as one of the fuel for our running the vehicles and all that. And some of the aviation fuel, this is also coming from this CO2, methanol and ethanol practices we are doing it. We are going for the green hydrogen. Green hydrogen means solar panels. From the solar panel, we are generating the electricity, and this electricity is used for electrolysis of the water. And from there, we are getting the hydrogen. So all the things are to just reduce the carbon footprint, at the same time increasing the way how we can produce the hydrogen. Because future, everybody is seeing towards hydrogen. At the same time, the coal, efficiently using the same coal to produce more electricity with the state-of-art technology. And NTPC, and very recently in the last financial, when there was a production of the finance budget, it was told that NTPC and BHEL together is going for the temperature which is much more than the ultra supercritical. In that condition, that plant once come, it will be the first plant in the world that will be having efficiency even higher than 41.5% with the coal. So technology-wise, we are pushing ahead. At the same times, we are shutting down our old power plant. Just like you see the Badarpur thermal power plant, which was old enough. So the emission of the level was very high. We shut it down and converted into eco park. So likewise, country will move with the available resources, with the available high technology, and at the same time, NTPC is doing for the environment protection, FGD, flue gas desulfurization.
But Mr. Singh, sorry to interrupt you there, but you've spoken of so many aspects. Sometimes, for the audiences watching this from back home, it sounds like a problem of plenty. There's so much that India has to achieve.
More than 24,000 megawatt. As on today, we are having installed capacity of 76,000 megawatt plus NTPC, but 24,000 plus megawatt is from supercritical. So that is giving you an edge over the old technology. Where we are doing the actual, because the money has to be invested. But as only abundant resourceable source is our coal.
Yeah, because we have
until
to keep in mind,
2050, we will be
have
using
to keep
this
in
coal.
mind our development. That's a big priority for us, and that's where much of challenge also comes in. Mr. Mundol, to quickly talk about the initiative that India has been able to take in this direction, it can't be spoken of without talking about the National Action Plan launched in 2008. We also spoke briefly about how the West is viewing these initiatives. Would you want to elaborate that for our audiences, and how far have these initiatives gone?
So, I think it was March of last year, Time magazine had a cover story, and it called India the most important country in the world on climate change. And they said that for a number of reasons. Number one was the fact that the general political environment on climate change is so much healthier in India. We don't have strange conspiracy theories about windmills causing cancer, or is climate change happening or not happening. Politicians aren't squabbling about bizarre things that they are doing in some parts of the world. You don't have companies actively lobbying against ESG. It sounds trite, but when you contrast it to what's happening in other countries, it's a really good place to be in. The second is, and I'll give you one statistic. Last year, 1.5 million electric vehicles were sold in the country. The majority of them were scooters and three-wheelers. And if you look at how the West evolved on electric vehicles, you had the Toyota Prius in the US for the longest time, but the market didn't really take off until Tesla came in with a really cool car, but it was at $60,000. What did the Chinese do? BYD built a car at $30,000. The fastest selling car in India is the Nexon, 15 lakhs, roughly $15,000. Those kind of initiatives are showing the way for the market opportunity. I think another important aspect of how the West is looking at it is increasingly, because of COVID and the challenges on the supply chain, because of geopolitical tensions that Europe and the US primarily have with China, they're looking at India as a strategic alternative. From a climate perspective, the US, in its own strategic interest, doesn't want China to run away with green hydrogen the way it ran away with electric vehicles and critical minerals. And hence you will see so much more cooperation between the US and India and other allies on these new emerging areas.
And look at what happened in Quad, right? The Quad Summit, and how we're looking at greater cooperation in these very important areas. I don't have too much time, perhaps the last few seconds, and a very important question, and this would interest one and all, that I want to ask Mr. Ganeshan, which is about climate financing. There is a value to saving our planet, and it comes at a cost, truly. But what are the steps that we're taking in that direction and ensuring private involvement, private companies, corporate sector? How do we go about that? What is the vision in place as per you?
It's obviously the million-dollar question, right, of climate finance, or the trillion-dollar question, as you might say. So far, the debate's really been about getting the West to own up to their responsibility for having caused the climate change that's happened thus far, because most of the CO2 that you have in the atmosphere is on account of development efforts that have happened over there. Going forward, of course, as we've discussed, it is, of course, going to be contributed by India. But notwithstanding that, it's really about how do they pay for what they've caused and the impacts that it already is having. So 75% of districts in India, for instance, already vulnerable to climate disasters. Now, on this front, I think there has been a lot of debate starting from 2009, and then even the Paris commitment of a $100 billion revolving fund. And we realized that with every passing year, the hope that there will be this magical, amount of money that will come from the West is disappearing, right? It's a bit of a mirage. The can kicks down the road. And it's not going to be sort of the order of that what we require. In fact, an assessment by multiple agencies says that we're looking at money in the order of $10 trillion in our path to decarbonization by 2070, of which a large part will actually have to come from domestic entities, right? Which means that we will have to figure out how, as an economy, we realize that investing in climate positive solutions, right, and not in solutions that have maybe served us so far, how do we as a country divert resources, perhaps that is through the development of a bond market, for instance, in India, which is not very active. And where people also realize that instead of sort of asking for an unrealistic premium from investing in, in climate change related activities, we sort of have a social discount rate, which is typically what determines, how much are you likely expecting from there, in a ballpark that makes sense for climate projects to actually come up, and to climate-friendly projects, which could be renewable energy investments, which could be electric vehicle purchases, and which could be sort of, building our cities differently. So municipal bonds that basically help cities create infrastructure. How do you basically pay for that in a way that the people are actually contributing their savings through innovative instruments? And largely, I think it's about looking inward and not so much outside. But that said, the cheapest place to decarbonize in the world today is probably in the developing world, which means that this opportunity, and once we show that we are serious about it, which we already have, and we've de-risked it, that money from those pension funds and some of those large assets outside will start flowing in. And I think what Government of India can basically do is catalyze, I think, key beacon projects that ensures that we're demonstrating to the rest of the world we're a low-risk environment, we're committed to this, and India is the best investment destination for this.
Well, they say power of change lies in working together. So here's to hoping that we can all work together and really come up with these solutions that we're still looking at very closely. And that's a term, in fact, many have not found an answer to as yet. We're seeing this conversation take place in each and every climate forum, but let's hope for the best, really. Many thanks, gentlemen. That's all the time we have. Thank you for taking out your time and speaking to us. Thank you. A huge round of applause, please. Once again, thank you so much to all the speakers for such an enriching and insightful discussion. Hope India will continue to lead the way for a greener world at the global stage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for our next session, we are excited to have with us a special guest, someone who embodies the spirit of sustainability and actively works towards making our planet a greener place. Gul Panag is not only a talented actor and an entrepreneur, but also a passionate environmental activist. Today, we're honored to have her at the News18 Green Ribbon Champions 2024 for an insightful chat. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Gul Panag to the stage for this engaging conversation with my colleague Akanksha Swaroop.
First of all, thank you so much for joining us, Gul. News18 Green Ribbon Champions is, of course, honored, deeply honored to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'd like to thank the Network 18 team and you, of course, Akanksha, for saying those kind things about me and for inviting me here to be a part of this very, very relevant, very important, and I feel much needed platform.
The pleasure is all ours. And for all of those who are unaware, let me inform you that Gul has been very active when it comes to environmental responsibilities and contributions. So let me begin. First things first. What sparked your interest in such environmental activism? And have you evolved your practices over the years gone by?
I think there comes an inflection point in everyone's life, and my inflection point came when I had my son. I began to see the world very differently from the way I saw it earlier. I realized that I'm not just thinking about myself, and now I have a responsibility because someone is going to outlive me. So the selfish nature of consumption, the selfish nature with which we go about living our lives. And I'm not talking in a manner that's sort of disparaging or disrespectful to our choices. I'm talking about the generic nature in which society operates. We just think of ourselves and what impact our choices will make on our immediate ecosystem. We don't often realize the impact of our choices on the larger ecosystem. And I think when you have a child, a lot of us will be jerked and have a reality check and perhaps start thinking that, okay, we now need to start thinking about what will happen after us. So people talk about things like global warming, rising sea levels, melting ice caps, and you think कि मेरी जिंदगी में थोड़ी ना होने वाला है. You know, I've got 25, 30, 40 more years to live. That's it. I mean, it's not my problem. That's pretty much how everyone looks at it. Or how much difference will that one additional plastic that you throw on the roadside, or you know, anything that you do which doesn't take care of your environment, rather it degrades your environment. If I could walk but I took a car. So all those little choices suddenly become something that you start thinking about.
I'm glad that you are focusing on the practicality of it, because remember, much of it is lost in jargon. And it's so responsible of you that you're talking about how this should also have a generational impact, which is why, as a woman and as a mother, I want to know from you, how are you ensuring this remains impactful in the generations to come, especially, as you mentioned, your son, who also played an integral role in inspiring you?
I think the generational impact is the only impact that can arrest and then to somewhat a degree remedy the amount of climate damage and ecosystem damage we've done over the last, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And before I get to what I personally do, I think the schools of today are doing an incredible yeoman service in, I would say, indoctrinating the children, because this is the kind of indoctrination we do need.
Give us some examples of how you place this in practice.
Environmental sciences for today, for children, are increasingly speaking about things like interdependency and ecosystems. So a lot of the weekend engagements, because in new age schools they don't have homework. A lot of the weekend engagement my son brings home has ecosystems. He has to define an ecosystem, and then he has to define the collaboration and the interdependencies of ecosystems. And he's in class 2. So I think that's already happening. Now, how are we going to start thinking differently? I feel in terms of water consumption, a lot of the water consumption that we do can, in my opinion, be curtailed. But more importantly, curtailing is only to a certain extent. You can't stop having a bath. You can't stop washing your dishes. What is the next affirmative action you can do? I think rainwater harvesting. Rainwater harvesting is an absolute necessity, and in fact should be, in a lot of policy measures is a mandate, but it should be enforced aggressively. And then solar rooftop activation, wherever. And it is possible, because I run a green home on the outskirts of Mumbai.
I was just about to come to that.
Completely powered by solar. Right. Everybody said it couldn't be done. And not only is it completely powered by solar, it is also, we're completely off the grid. So we do not use grid power at all. Of course, it doesn't support air conditioners, and we want to increase our solar array in order to be able to have DC air conditioners. There are DC air conditioners now being made which are compatible with the solar power generated. In addition to that, it runs as a homestay, as an Airbnb. Please go check it out.
Were there any reasons that you chose or opted for Pune per se?
I lived in Bombay, so it makes sense to have something close by. And flats and apartments, as an individual apartment owner, as an individual flat owner, I have very little choice in exercising control over things like rainwater harvesting and rooftop solars. Right. Simply because that is a managing committee. But today the managing committees of most apartment buildings, RWAs, are very, very empowered.
RWAs have a very crucial role to play.
And they are doing a great job.
The point that you're making, one great example is of how you can maximize natural light to minimize electricity consumption. And I think that's an excellent point to borrow from. But having said that, since you're talking about creating eco-friendly spaces, how can urban architecture become more sustainable in living? Borrowing from some of these examples.
I think sustainability is about making do with less. I'm wearing an outfit, for example, which I wore last year at a similar sustainability event, because we have to make sustainable choices from the word go. Typically, we as women are under tremendous pressure. Don't repeat an outfit. My whole point is, you have to take an affirmative step and say, I want to be sustainable. So it starts with the clothes you wear. The most sustainable outfit is the one that's already in your wardrobe. Buying new things is not sustainable. So consumption. Coming to architecture and home design. Well, building with local material, rather than lugging truckloads of stuff from far away just because you like marble from a particular place. Sure, it's great, it's aesthetic, but consumption has to be curtailed. We have to have a finite view on what we want.
I'm glad you talk about consumption, and since I'm running short of time, I quickly want to come to onegreen.in that's been co-founded by you. It's one of the largest market spaces in India that deals with eco-friendly, sustainable goods. So when you're looking at a market space like that, how is that contributing to the green market space and also bridging the gap of sustainable goods between consumers and, of course, business dealers likewise?
Research reveals that in the socio-economic segment of A and B, SEC-A and SEC-B, a significant number of choices that people are making from a consumption standpoint are triggered by the sustainability quotient. People are making decisions to buy basis the procurement and the larger sustainability ecosystem of the products, be it food, be it clothing, be it stuff that they need in their day-to-day lives. Now, that tells you something, that the demand exists. So we can't turn around and say that, look, consumers aren't ready for it. Consumers are ready. We need to give consumers a choice. The consumers are aware and they are demanding it. Now, we have to handle the supply side by creating platforms and marketplaces where people who are interested in sustainability and who want to take affirmative action, everybody can't go and join an NGO. You can take affirmative action every single day with the way you live and the choices you make.
Gul, that's why I want to close with your thoughts on what are the challenges that currently India and the society at large is facing. How can we bridge that gap?
You know, the challenge with sustainability is pretty much like the challenge with women empowerment. It's a big word. What does it actually mean?
That's a great
How
analogy.
do you break it down? I mean, everywhere you go, people talk about Mahila Sashktikaran and women empowerment. Uska matlab kya hai? It broken down simply comes down to creating an environment where women can exercise agency on their life choices. Similarly, we need to break sustainability down to day-to-day choices that we make. Ultimately, it's a way of life. It's the way we choose to lead our lives. The way we travel, the way we consume in our homes. If a decision needs to be made, whether you have to travel, and if the same objective can be met through a now worldwide phenomena of video calling, why don't we do that? So every choice, everywhere, determines our sustainability footprint. And it doesn't need to be this gigantic word. It's simple. Every choice needs to be looked at.
And I must say, you're leading by example. Thank you for being that voice that is shaping today's choices, especially when it comes to going green. Thank you. It was a pleasure having you here with us, and more power to you, Gul.
Thank you,
Thank
Kansha.
you so much.
Thank you for your kind words.
Gul, thank you so much for that story. No, you need to stay back. We need you for the first set of felicitations. But thank you for those inspirational words and sharing your story. And women, I must say, have a lot of thinking to do. No changing your wardrobes very quickly. Okay, now it's time to announce the first category. This evening, this is for the Green Ribbon Champion for Green Eco-Friendly Initiative. This is presented to a company that has shown exceptional commitment to environmental sustainability while boosting economic prosperity. And this year, it will be presented to Karnataka Soaps and Detergents Limited. Karnataka Soaps and Detergents Limited has launched this initiative to promote eco-friendly practices. The program aims to increase Karnataka's green cover and the wealth of rural communities by promoting sustainable sandalwood cultivation. I would now request Mr. Gangappa, General Manager, Marketing and Admin, Karnataka Soaps and Detergents Limited, Government of Karnataka, to kindly come up on the stage for the felicitation. Thank you, sir. Heartiest congratulations, Mr. Gangappa. Moving on, it's time to announce the next category for the Green Ribbon Champions. It is Sustainability Champion of Northeast India. This is presented to a company whose work has demonstrated sustainable growth in northeastern parts of the country and nestled in Assam's Bodoland territorial region. NTPC Bongaigaon exemplifies sustainable growth, generating 750 megawatts of clean energy and driving progress in Northeast India. Its CSR initiatives span healthcare, education, skill development, empowerment, impacting nearly 2 lakh lives across the northeastern states. I would request Mr. Akhilesh Singh, Head of Project NTPC Bongaigaon, and Onkar Nath, Additional GM NTPC Bongaigaon, to come up on the stage for the felicitation. Round of applause for our Green Ribbon Champions. Now it's time to announce the next category, and this is Champion of Sustainable Development. This is presented to a company that has shown exceptional innovation and commitment towards overall sustainable development across its business and society. Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, one of the world's largest transmission utilities, is involved in CSR initiatives focused on rural development, education, healthcare, skill development, environment and water conservation, and sanitation. In Odisha's remote Kalahandi district, the state-run company implemented a unique, farmer-centric integrated watershed management project that transformed rural livelihoods, protected the environment, and mitigated the effects of recurring droughts. To acknowledge the company's endeavors, I would like to request Mr. G. Ravi Shankar, Director Finance, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, to kindly come up on the stage for felicitation. Can we please have a huge round of applause? The next category is Excellence in Decarbonization. This is presented to a company for its environmental stewardship and decarbonizing initiatives across its business operations. GAIL is integrating sustainability into its core values. As a natural gas player, it is contributing to India's goal of increasing its share in the energy mix to 15% by 2030. With a growing renewable energy portfolio, GAIL is driving decarbonization through projects like green hydrogen and compressed biogas. I would now like to request Mr. Shri Subit Kishore, Executive Director, Gail to come up on the stage for the felicitation. Thank you so much and many congratulations, sir. Presenting the next category of the evening, the Green Efficient Transportation Initiative. This is presented to a company for its exemplary initiative promoting green transportation. Vedanta Limited Sterlite Copper, a leading copper producer in India, recently launched LNG vehicles at Vedanta's copper plant in Silvassa in collaboration with Green Line Mobility Solutions. Replacing traditional diesel trucks, these LNG vehicles will transport finished goods to the North Zone, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. May I now invite Ankita Sharan, Head Green Copper Division, Vedanta Limited, Sterlite Copper, to come up on the stage for the felicitation. Now it's time to recognize the efforts of an individual whose commitment to the environment has been outstanding. Green Ribbon Champion for outstanding environmental commitment goes to a prominent leader from Madhya Pradesh who has a vision and influence that transcends his constituency and has a national impact. 15 years back, he launched a massive water conservation and awareness program in Gond in Madhya Pradesh. His work focuses on vital sectors like infrastructure, healthcare, environment conservation, and legislative reforms. I would like to invite Mr. Rakesh Singh, Minister of Public Works Department, Government of Madhya Pradesh, on the stage, please. Sir, can you please take the mic, sir? Okay, we have a question for you, sir. आपकी story, आपका initiative इतना inspirational है. थोड़ा सा अपने contribution के बारे में, अपने काम के बारे में और इस पूरी कहानी के बारे में बताइए.
सबसे पहले तो मैं न्यूज़ 18 नेटवर्क को हृदय से आभार करना चाहता हूं कि आपने इस योग्य समझा और मुझे यहां पर बुलाया. जिस विषय को लेकर आप ये बड़ा काम कर रहे हैं, मुझे लगता है कि समाज में इसकी बहुत बड़ी आवश्यकता है. काम करने वाले लोग बहुत हैं, लेकिन समय समय पर उन्हें कोई एनकरेज करे, आगे बढ़ने की प्रेरणा दे, तो बाकी लोगों में भी ये भाव और ये इच्छा जागती है. मैंने बहुत वर्षों पहले, गांव से पृष्ठभूमि है, कभी मौसी के गांव में ननिहाल के पास ही हुआ करता था, सागर जिले में. वहां जाते थे, कुआं हुआ करता था, पूरा गांव उसको पनिया कुआं बोलता था. उसी गांव में सभी नहाते थे, उसका इस्तेमाल करते थे. आज हम कहते हैं रिचार्ज बोर. कई बार भाषा भी ठीक तरीके से कम्युनिकेट नहीं कर पाती और ठीक हो तो कर पाती है. उस समय कोई नहीं कहता था. कुएं के पास एक गड्ढा होता था, उस गड्ढे में पानी इकट्ठा होता था. समझने वाले ये समझ सकते हैं कि वो पानी रिचार्ज होता था, वापस धरती के भीतर जाता था. धीरे धीरे कई वर्ष बीते. मैं 2004 में पहली बार जब मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट बना, कुछ समय के बाद मेरा उस गांव में जाना हुआ. पूरा गांव इकट्ठा हुआ. मैं घर पे मौसी के पहुंचा. सामने मैंने एक हैंडपंप देखा, तो मैंने उससे आश्चर्य से कहा कि यह हैंडपंप हमारे कजन थे, उन्होंने बड़े उत्साह के साथ बताया कि हमारे गांव में इस तहसील में सबसे ज्यादा हैंडपंप हैं, 30 हैंडपंप हैं। मैंने सुना और मुझे जैसे झटका लगा। मैंने पूछा पनिया कुआं? उन्होंने कहा वो तो सूख गया। बुंदेलखंडी में कहा कि वो तो सूख गया। महत्वपूर्ण ये नहीं है कि वो सूख गया, महत्वपूर्ण ये है कि वो कहते हुए उनके या गांव के किसी भी व्यक्ति के चेहरे पर कोई शिकन नहीं थी। और मुझे बड़ी तकलीफ हुई कि एक ऐसा कुआं जो 60, 70, 80 सालों से पूरे गांव को पानी दे रहा था, वो सूख गया, किसी को फर्क नहीं है। तब मुझे लगा कि इस पर मुझे कुछ काम करना चाहिए। फिर मैंने एक जल रक्षा यात्रा तय किया। जब भीषण गर्मी थी, 9 तपा चल रहे थे, और उस समय 20 दिन की वो यात्रा लगभग 480 किलोमीटर की यात्रा थी। मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र में हम दोपहर में 12 बजे उसको शुरू करते थे और शाम को उसका समापन किसी सूखे हुए जल स्रोत पर अलग अलग स्थानों पर करते थे। उद्देश्य केवल एक था कि लोग पानी के महत्व को समझें, और उसको लोग जब ये कहते हैं कि ये सामाजिक जिम्मेदारी है, तो एक तरह से हम खुद उस जिम्मेदारी से दूर हो जाते हैं। जब तक हम ये नहीं मानेंगे कि ये निजी जिम्मेदारी है। हमारे बुजुर्गों ने क्या किया, वो यही करते थे। सरकार के भरोसे ये काम नहीं हो सकते, ये सबको समझना पड़ेगा। गांव में हमारे बुजुर्ग जो थे, कुएं की सफाई हो, तालाब की सफाई हो, ये खुद किया करते थे, और इस निजी जिम्मेदारी से वो सामाजिक जिम्मेदारी बनी। लेकिन आज जब हम उसको सामाजिक जिम्मेदारी कहते हैं, तो हम ये मानते हैं कि जिम्मेदारी समाज की है, और उस नाते से हमारी भूमिका उसमें बहुत छोटी है, और इसलिए हम सब उससे बहुत दूर हो जाते हैं। मैंने लगातार उसके बाद कई प्रयास किए। मुझे कहते हुए बेहद खुशी है कि संसदीय कार्यकाल के 20 साल मेरे दिल्ली में निकले हैं। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी से बहुत बार इन विषयों पर बातचीत हुई, और एक प्रधानमंत्री के तौर पर नहीं, मेरी पार्टी के नेता के तौर पर नहीं, बल्कि पानी का संरक्षण कैसे करना चाहिए, इसकी जितनी अद्भुत जानकारियां उनके पास है, मुझे लगता है किसी विशेषज्ञ के पास भी नहीं है। एक बार जब उन्होंने मुझसे मेरे काम के बारे में बातचीत की, मैंने उनको बताया कि अभी मैं एक नदी है जबलपुर के पास, बरेला है, छोटी सी एक नदी है, गौर नदी, वहां सूख जाता है पानी, उसमें मैं काम कर रहा हूं, एक छोटा सा बांध बनाऊंगा बगैर किसी मशीन के। उन्होंने मुझसे कहा कि तुम किस पद्धति से बना रहे हो? मैंने कहा गैबेडियन से। उन्होंने कहा कि वो तो एक बार भी पानी उसके ऊपर से निकला तो फिर वो ठहरेगा नहीं। तो मैंने विनम्रता पूर्वक हाथ जोड़ के कहा कि पानी उसके ऊपर से निकल चुका है। तो उन्होंने कहा कि अब जीवन भर पानी उसके ऊपर से कितनी बार भी निकले, उस बांध को कुछ होने वाला नहीं है। वही स्थिति है। वो बांध तो बनाया हम लोगों ने 20-25 दिन के परिश्रम से। उस गांव में 3 किलोमीटर पीछे तक और 3 किलोमीटर आगे तक इतना पानी होने लगा कि बाद में लोगों को बांध की ऊंचाई को कम करना पड़ा, और उससे लोगों ने सिंचाई शुरू कर दी। बहुत बार हम अपने कामों के बारे में समझ नहीं पाते कि उनके दूरगामी परिणाम क्या होंगे। लेकिन आज जब उस गांव के लोग इस बात को याद करते हैं कि आज जहां पानी का संकट था, वहां छोटे से प्रयास से आज सिंचाई के लिए भी पानी मिल रहा है, पीने का पानी तो बड़ी बात है। तब ये लगता है कि किए हुए कुछ कार्य अगर समाज के भीतर लोगों को प्रेरणा दे सकते हैं, तो उसमें हम सबकी भूमिका होना चाहिए। ऐसे बहुत सारे काम है। अभी पिछले दिनों बावड़ियां, हम सभी जानते हैं कि क्या भूमिका निभाया करती थी पहले, लेकिन बाद में क्या स्वरूप उनका हो गया है। मैंने माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी से जिक्र में एक बार कहा कि अब मैं बावड़ियों पर कुछ काम करना चाहता हूं, तो उन्होंने कहा कि कौन सी बावड़ी है? मैंने कहा बहुत पुरानी है, रानी दुर्गावती जी के कालखंड की है। तो उन्होंने मुझसे कहा कि जब वो बावड़ी पूरी बन जाए तो उसका नाम जल मंदिर रखना। आप सोचिए कि कितनी बड़ी बात है। और जैसे ही उन्होंने ये कहा और मेरे जहन में जल मंदिर का एक चित्र बन गया। मैंने 2 बावड़ियों पर काम किया। वो बावड़ियां ऐसी थी कि जब उसकी सफाई हम लोग कर रहे थे, तो एक तो लगभग 40 फीट गहरी थी। तो उसकी सफाई करते समय पत्नी मेरी सामने बैठी हैं, तो जब मैं शाम को घर पहुंचता था और वॉशरूम में नहाने के लिए जाता था, तो ये कहा करती थी कि इस वॉशरूम में कोई भी नहाने के लिए नहीं जाएगा, क्योंकि इतनी बदबू उसमें आ रही है, जो कपड़ों के कारण आपकी आई है। लेकिन फिर भी खुशी इस बात की है कि जनहित का कोई काम आप ऐसा कर रहे हो। सफाई करने के बाद में वो बावड़ियां जल मंदिर के स्वरूप में ही हमने विकसित की। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने उस समय लगभग 2 बार उन पर ट्वीट भी किए थे। और मुझे कहते हुए खुशी है कि पिछले दिनों मध्य प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री जब उस बावड़ी पर गए, तो उन्होंने आश्चर्य से पूछा कि ये जो पानी है, ये पानी इसी बावड़ी का ओरिजिनली है? मैंने कहा कि इसी का है। उन्होंने उस पानी को पिया और कहा कि ये तो पीने लायक है। मैंने कहा 100% ये पानी पीने लायक है। आज लोग वहां पर प्री वेडिंग शूट के लिए जाते हैं और वो बावड़ियां इतने सुंदर स्वरूप में हैं कि उसकी कल्पना भी नहीं की जा सकती। वास्तव में देखकर लगता है कि वो कोई जल मंदिर है। प्रयास ऐसे छोटे छोटे हैं, लेकिन ऐसा कहने के लिए बहुत कुछ है, समय आपके पास कम है। लेकिन मैं हर जगह एक ही बात कहता हूं। जब मैं जल रक्षा यात्रा पर था तब भी मैं कहा करता था लोगों से कि हमें ये नहीं मानना चाहिए कि हमारे प्रयास बहुत छोटे हैं। एक कहानी के साथ मैं अपनी बात समाप्त कर रहा हूं, जो मैं वहां सुनाया करता था कि एक बार एक गांव में आग लगी। हर कोई, भीषण आग थी, हर कोई उस आग को बुझाने के लिए, पास में एक नदी थी, उसमें पानी लेने के लिए दौड़ा, जिससे जो बर्तन पे पानी लाते बना वो आग बुझाने की कोशिश कर रहा था। पेड़ पर एक चिड़िया बैठी थी। उस चिड़िया ने देखा, चिड़िया और एक कौवा दो उस पर बैठे हुए थे। चिड़िया भी उड़ी, नदी में, पानी में अपनी चोंच में पानी भरा और ऊपर से आग में डाला और बार बार वो यही करती रही। पेड़ पर बैठे हुए कौवे ने जब उसको देखा तो कहा, उसका उपहास उड़ाते हुए कि क्यों रे चिड़िया, तुझे क्या लगता है तेरी चोंच के एक बूंद पानी से ये आग बुझेगी? चिड़िया ने कहा कि नहीं, मैं जानती हूं कि मेरी चोंच के एक बूंद पानी से आग नहीं बुझेगी, लेकिन भविष्य में जब इतिहास लिखा जाएगा तो मेरा नाम आग लगाने वालों में नहीं, आग बुझाने वालों में लिखा जाएगा। ये भाव अगर हम सबके भीतर है कि प्रयास हमारा कितना भी छोटा क्यों ना हो, लेकिन आने वाली पीढ़ियां हमें इस बात के लिए याद रखेंगी कि हमने उनके लिए कुछ छोड़ा है। ठीक वैसे ही जैसे हमारे बुजुर्गों ने किसी श्रेय की कामना के बगैर ये सब कुछ संरक्षित करके जल की एक समृद्ध विरासत हमें सौंपी थी, तो मुझे लगता है कि हमारे भीतर भी ये भाव होना चाहिए कि हम सब थोड़ा बहुत भी कर पाएं, तो जिस दिन भी करेंगे उस दिन रात में हमें नींद अच्छी आएगी और भीतर से आवाज आएगी कि वास्तव में हमने कुछ अच्छा काम किया है। मैंने इस पुरस्कार के बारे में तो कभी सोचा ही नहीं, लेकिन फिर भी आपने ये दिया, तो ये मेरे साथ काम करने वाले उन सभी मेरे कार्यकर्ता साथियों और बहनों के लिए समर्पित है जो सैकड़ों किलोमीटर मेरे साथ चले हैं, उस गंदगी की सफाई की है। कोई उन्हें याद नहीं करता, कोई उनके बारे में कहता नहीं, लेकिन मैं ये उनको समर्पित करता हूं और इस विश्वास के साथ कि इसको जब भी वो देखेंगे तो उनके भीतर इस तरह के काम की प्रेरणा और भी अधिक जागेगी। आज इस मंच पर आपने मुझे बुलाया है, आप सबका हृदय की गहराइयों से धन्यवाद। यहाँ उपस्थित सभी लोगों का बहुत बहुत आभार, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद राकेश जी, धन्यवाद। आपने हमारे समाज के लिए बहुत कुछ किया और आपकी कहानी ने, आपके काम ने भी आज बहुत प्रेरणा दी हमें। थैंक यू सो मच सर, थैंक यू। Gul, I would request you to stay on for a little while longer for the next round of felicitations. I also want to invite Mr. Ajay Shankar, Distinguished Fellow, DG's Office, Terry, for the next session of felicitations. Thank you, sir. The next category is the Green Ribbon Champion for Excellence in Green Financing. This is presented to a company that has shown exceptional commitment towards financing green infrastructure projects, and REC, a Maharatna company under the administrative control of the Ministry of Power, has diversified into the non-power infrastructure sector over the years. The company also provides loans and other financing products to state, center, and private companies for creation of infrastructure assets across the country. I would like to request Mr. Saurabh Rastogi, Executive Director, REC Limited, to come on the stage for the felicitation. Thank you, sir. Moving forward, now it's time to announce the next category on Green Ribbon Champions. It's the Green Banking Initiative. This is presented to a bank that has expanded its green initiatives across its services and products to foster sustainability. In July 2023, Punjab National Bank launched the transformative Go Green initiative, called PNB Palash Uniting for a Greener Tomorrow to foster sustainability within the organization. Key actions include tree plantation, reducing plastic usage, promoting recycling, and financing green projects. Over 1 lakh of its employees pledged to make eco-friendly choices in day-to-day life. I would like to request Mr. Manish Agarwal, GM PNB Bank, to come up on the stage for the felicitation. Congratulations to the entire team of PNB present here. Let's now recognize the sustainability champion in green living. This is presented to a company that has demonstrated outstanding efforts in building energy efficient infrastructure and promoting green living, and it goes to PS Group. Realty firm PS Group has been a leader in sustainability since 2015 as a founding member of the Indian Green Building Council. It has delivered 12 green projects with 10 more underway still. PS Group aims to plant over 3 lakh plants. The group has reduced 3,12,000 tons of CO2 emissions while restoring natural habitats and supporting biodiversity across projects. I would like to call upon Nivedita Jain, ESG Manager, PS Group, for the felicitation. A huge round of applause, please. Thank you and many congratulations. Moving on to the next category, this is the Green Ribbon Champion for Green Jeweler and Excellence in Sustainable Fashion. This is presented to a company that has embraced an overall green approach in the business of style and fashion. In 2023, Senco Gold and Diamonds distributed over 50,000 aloe vera plants known for their oxygen-releasing properties at night for its valued customers. It also embraced sustainability with paperless e-bills and eco-friendly jute bags for customers. I would like to request Sri Mayur Dubey, Regional Manager, North, and Sanjeev Shukla, GM Marketing and Business Development, Senco Gold and Diamonds, to come up on the stage for the felicitation. Thank you, gentlemen, and many congratulations once again. The next category is the Green Ribbon Champion for Green Initiative towards CSR and environment conservation. This is presented to a company for its multiple initiatives for environmental preservation and building clean, green, and healthy habitats. Since its inception in 1948, Damodar Valley Corporation has been dedicated to nation building through extensive CSR activities across 629 villages. Near its major plants in Jharkhand and also West Bengal. DVC also aggressively promotes green initiatives like solar irrigation, jute bag production, and sapling distribution for plantation drives. I would like to request Dr. John Mathai, Member Secretary, Damodar Valley Corporation, to come up on the stage for the felicitation. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Gul and Mr. Shankar, for your time and felicitating our Green Ribbon Champions. Thank you so much. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And I now invite my colleague Akanksha Swaroop on the stage for our next session.
Thank you, Kritsween. As we now move forward this evening, we come to a final panel discussion titled Setting Targets for a Greener India. India's commitment to environmental sustainability is stronger than ever. With ambitious goals, the nation aims to achieve net zero emissions by the year 2070 and ensure that 50% of its electricity requirements come from renewable energy sources by 2030. This commitment is not just a promise, it's a transformation shift that is already in motion. And to delve deeper into this important topic, we have assembled an esteemed panel of experts who will be sharing their insights and perspectives. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ajay Shankar, a distinguished fellow at the Energy and Resources Institute, which is the TERI, and a retired IS officer. Ms. Shrestha Banerjee, who is the Director, Just Transition at iForest, and also Mr. Devdut Mukherjee, who is the Deputy Director of the National Jute Board at the Ministry of Textiles with Government of India. Thank you, Ms. Banerjee, Mr. Shankar, and of course, Mr. Mukherjee for joining in. Mr. Shankar, to begin with, how is India achieving the NDC target, especially when it comes to reducing the emissions intensity by the year 2030? We aim to cut it down by 45% of our GDP. How do you see our progress so far, and how is it aligning in terms of international solution when it comes to climate transition?
India is today moving better than most people had thought it would move. And there are three factors which we need to recognize. One is that the world has moved very rapidly in terms of technology and in terms of the reduction of the costs of green energy. And the third, and which is unique to us, is this is one area where we have been remarkably successful. So just to give you one number, when the National Solar Mission was launched in 2010, the goal was to have 22,000 megawatts of solar power by 2022. And then everybody thought that this is very unlikely to be achieved, probably impossible. But today, we have achieved more than 4 times as much. We have 87,000 megawatts of solar power in the country. And every 2 months when I come for an event like this, I have to increase or update my knowledge because we are moving very, very fast.
Heartwarming.
So I'm very confident that we are going to be one of the world leaders in this energy transformation. And just 2 major things that I worth pointing out. I think within a year you're seeing electric buses on the roads of Delhi. And now there are more than 2 electric cab services companies in Delhi. And I think we are having 2 parallel transitions, which is one, road transport moving to electricity and electricity moving to lower carbon emissions and ultimately zero carbon emissions. So if the 2 trajectories converge, where all vehicles are electric and all electricity is carbon free, we would have got rid of 50% of the emissions of our country, and we'll be one of the global leaders in decarbonization. And in this manner, we are, I think, moving a little faster than others, because I had a friend visiting and he said, maybe in Delhi we have more electric buses than any other city of this kind in the world by now.
You mean specifically Delhi? That's, in fact, interesting point that you've made. Ms. Banerjee, how do you weigh in on India's new green revolution? Because remember, it's a very lofty goal when you say net zero emissions by the year 2070. But how do you weigh in on that target, and how far has India come?
So I would not say lofty goals, I would say ambitious goals. The thing is that I still think that 2070 net zero targets is a very ambitious target for a country like India, given our dependence on fossil fuel economy. And globally, the target is 2050, but if we look at the number of people who are dependent on the fossil fuel-based industries, and the transition is not just a technological transition we are talking about, we are also looking at socio-economic transformations at the same time. So therefore, I believe the way India is progressing, it's taking a measured approach. So far, it has been trying to put in place various mechanisms through schemes, policies, and I believe we all heard the Minister of Finance in the budget that India is going to come up with an energy transition policy, and that's very encouraging. Therefore, the country should come up to meet the net zero target with the right kind of laws, institutions, policies, and I believe we'll definitely be able to achieve it.
I hope we do, because much of it is also lost in the jargons that surrounds it, which is why, Mr. Mukherjee, I want to, in fact, first of all, ask you a very basic question. Is growth possible along with achieving those sustainable goals? And how do you see India in its net zero journey over there? How achievable and how practical is achieving goals of sustainability and growth, economic growth at the same time?
Yes, true that growth is important for the economy to proceed. And to achieve the growth, we have to adopt some of the policies, like we have to move away from the fossil fuel, we have to try with the renewable energy. In the renewable energy, like Sir has already mentioned, there is a huge opportunity for the wind energy, for the solar energy. In the wind energy also, we have already a capacity of, I think, 49 gigawatt, and there is a possibility that we can move up to 132 gigawatt. And as Sir told that in the solar energy also, we have an installed capacity of 87,000 megawatt, and there also we have the possibility to go more than 750 gigawatt. So we have to, I'm very optimistic, and I know that we should proceed one by one achieving this capacity. We have to build up our capacity and we have to move ahead. And definitely we will reduce our fossil fuel imports, and we should use the renewable energies that is available in India.
That's a very valid point in terms of reduction of fossil fuel dependency. But Mr. Shankar, let's talk about the two very important elements of India's climate action plan, which is mitigation and adaptation. A lot of focus has been placed on mitigation, but so far reports indicate that not much is being done about adaptation. How is government of India responding to, say, having adaptation of all those vulnerable communities that are impacted by climate change?
Let me, I think, be a little blunt here. Mitigation is the solution because the cost of adaptation rises exponentially as global warming increases. And beyond a point, adaptation is physically not possible. So if we do not move very rapidly in mitigation efforts and reach net zero as a planet, with most of the reduction being front-ended, meaning next 10, 15 years, the survival of mankind is at risk. This is not adequately appreciated. We do not have the luxury of choice or time, and adaptation is practical only if global warming is about 2.5 degrees. We are already crossed the 1.5 degree warming threshold. 2 degrees is appearing difficult. And unless the entire world acts very swiftly, adaptation would be a good phrase to use because it cannot be done. We are already seeing the floodings that are taking place in Europe the way you need to build bigger drains or where the coastal areas will sink. There is no way adaptation is feasible in my view. A modest degree of adaptation is possible, and for India, the best is one where some pilot projects are under implementation, which is you have solar panels over your agricultural fields. So they reduce the temperature, allow you to grow as much food as you were growing earlier. And so that adaptation will give us food security without risk and also give us all the solar energy we need.
All right.
And one point that I want to emphasize, which I mentioned earlier, today renewable energy along with storage is cheaper than new coal-based energy. So it is not a choice between development and renewable energy. Renewable energy plus storage is the cheapest way of going forward. And we have a hydrogen mission which will allow us also to be on the global frontier in decarbonizing industry.
All right. Ms. Banerjee, on the policy front, keeping some challenges in mind, as also highlighted by Mr. Shankar, what kind of collaborations can India seek in meeting those green targets?
So there are a couple of things, that are required to meet the green targets. And we have been hearing many of the targets that are specified today, such as 500 gigawatt of target by under our NTCs. We have a 40% emission reduction intensity of the GDP by 2030. It's all there. But the point is, to meet targets, you also need enforceable laws. And globally, we are seeing more and more countries are coming up with climate legislations. And this is where I think, given the problem of climate change that we are talking of, which is an economy-wide and a society-wide problem, and not a problem of a particular type of industry per se. So we need a more comprehensive, coordinated law, which helps to bring in together every aspect of our economic development of society to meet those targets. I think that is what is very important, and that is what the discussion is about. I mean, many of us following the policy space, law space, know that Supreme Court has been also talking about it very recently. And that's what I think we need to strengthen our laws so that the targets we have set under our NTCs or various other laws are enforceable, and that will also help us to achieve our global goals.
Right. I'm sure many of us would agree that it is time to introduce a robust climate action law. And to end with your thoughts, Mr. Mukherjee, where is the gap? Do you first of all agree that there's a gap between what's promised on paper vis-a-vis how it transpires when policy implementations actually take place on the ground?
Definitely, there is a gap, and in the healthcare also, if you see, and but actually, I am from this Jute fraternity. I am from National Jute Board. Now, my thinking is that we should more and more use products from the natural fibers so that the carbon footprint is less, and we should go ahead with the goals of the sustainable developments, and we should use everyday products, natural products, so that the carbon footprints are less.
Many thanks to you, Mr. Mukherjee, Ms. Banerjee, and Mr. Shankar for joining in with those very precious insights. I'm sure as we were talking about that, bridging the gap, these insights will perhaps help us in bridging that gap. It was a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much. Let's have a huge round of applause, please. I'd like to thank our panelists again for their precious thoughts and sharing their valuable insights with us on this topic. Also, fossil fuels have long been the backbone of industrialization and economic growth. But as we look to the future, India's demographic landscape is shifting dramatically. In 2023 alone, India surpassed China to become the world's most populous nation, a milestone that brings both opportunities and challenges. And so, With a growing population and a rapidly advancing economy, the demand for energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing capabilities is also skyrocketing. The critical question now is, how can India sustain its growth and ensure prosperity for all while making a swift transition to a low-carbon economy? And so, to delve deeper into this topic of going green with energy transitioning to green energy, we have an esteemed panel with us today as well. To take this conversation ahead, I would like to invite Mr. Saurabh Rastogi, Executive Director, REC Limited. Mr. Rastogi, please come onto the stage. Dr. John Mathai, who is the Member Secretary of the Damodar Valley Corporation. Also, Mr. Gaurav Kedia, who is the Chairperson of the India Biogas Association. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. All right, please be seated. Let's have a huge round of applause. The energy levels seem to be a bit low, and we are discussing energy. Mr. Kedia, how would you assess India's performance on its green energy transition front to begin with?
Sure. So, in English, there is a saying, a goal without a plan is just a wish. India really has got the very fundamental plan in place. And whether you talk in terms of electricity, whether it is 500 gigawatt, or in terms of green hydrogen, whether it is 5 MMT by 2030, or in case of bio-CNG, that is around 15 million metric ton, I think we are on the right path. And why I say the right path, because technically we are quite well equipped. If you see, India is trying to optimize the technology, trying to bring down the cost as well. This is where, developing nations are looking at us. Not only that, from the financial modeling perspective, we are coming up with a lot of instruments. And one of the instruments which I really would like to pinpoint is the blended finance, which will be the key for the development of any such project. And the third one, very important, especially from the India perspective, in order to really achieve this goal, is the social one. India is a relationship-driven society. When I was a kid, even my father used to call someone and someone used to call someone even to get a train ticket done, which I'm really proud of. So I think this socially driven things are something which can really drive the whole energy thing in order to really achieve something called net zero.
All right. Mr. Rastogi, let's talk about, since it's being discussed, especially when you look at developing nations, the role that corporates and industries are playing in developing nations. How can organizations utilize technology to perhaps come up with better solutions to our green goals?
So, as Gaurav was saying, that we have done fairly well in terms of moving the green path. REC is a major financier in the power sector, and we are the largest NBFC in the country.
Right.
Yeah. So we have been there for ages in the power infrastructure sector. We are also doing clean technologies in a very big way. And in line with what is being achieved in the country in terms of renewable capacity addition, we have also ramped up our focus and thrust on the renewable energy sector. So like, for example, currently the country is at an installed capacity of something like 200 gigawatts from non-fossil fuels. And the target is to have that increase to 500 gigawatt by 2030. And this means that the energy share of the non-fossil fuels, which is currently 26%, will actually grow to more than 50% by 2030. So that is the kind of traction and capacity addition that is going to get added over the next 5-6 years. And we are talking of something like 50,000 megawatts addition of renewable capacity every year. Apart from that, there is the whole gamut of e-mobility, which requires huge investments. And in terms of the technologies which you are saying, see, the energy-intensive pathways which are there, like refineries, steel, cement, the green hydrogen also has to play a very big role in that. And as green energy financiers, REC is also has registered its presence, and we have done 2 big projects in green hydrogen. So what we are trying to say is that we aspire to be the largest and the NBFC in the green financing space. We are also doing sustainable public infrastructure in terms of metros now. So, and this whole sector expansion will happen over a period of time. And just to, currently our loan book is like 5 lakh odd crores, 5,37,000 crores, of which 8% exposure is to renewables. And within this 8%, we would have done something like 25 to 30,000 gigawatts of projects we would have assisted. And we plan to take this to 30% of our portfolio by 2030. So that is the kind of traction.
That's very insightful. And Dr. Mathai, I'm sure you will agree that PSUs have a huge role to play, especially when it comes to the commitment to environmental responsibility. How can organizations collaborate better with PSUs, OMCs, only so that organizations achieve their targets through these collaborations?
Right, thank you. That's a wonderful question. First of all, I would like to agree with Saurabh and Gaurav, what they've told about, the commitments that as an organizations, all of us are committing to the planet. And thank you for having me here, and thank you for having the Damodar Valley Corporation on this platform.
Pleasure is ours.
Yeah, this is also equally important when you talk about that commitment, because Damodar Valley Corporation is one entity which has made the scripted the electricity journey of the post-independent India. So from 1948, when this organization worked for the last 76 years, contributing and making commitment to the people. So this tells a story about basically how organization can create a sustainable wealth for the people over a period of time. In its ups and downs, along with the movement of the society, the corporation has evolved. So when you ask the question about how PSUs can really, sustain over a long period of time in collaboration, the first thing that comes to mind is that the electricity sector per se is working in the concurrent list, which means there is center also, PSUs, public sector undertaking center, and then PSUs of the state. So what happens is there is a collaboration which is already there in that space between center and the states. And between states, if you look at the recent agreement between Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, you find that their energy composition demands are met in a different time because agricultural needs of both the states are different. So they are collaborating.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah. So between states, between centers, we are collaborating. And one of the things which you said specifically about the commitment is that as a corporation, which we have been doing is to create an environmental friendly behavior in the people, whether it is employees or whether it is society that are committed. The anchor was telling about 629 villages where we made the impact. We make the impact in terms of the need of the hour. That is the sustainability, the economic, the environmental need of the hour that we are making. That is how that commitment is happening.
I'm glad that commitment is there, because as Kritsween was also talking about, commitment is not easy, but it begins with that commitment. Mr. Kedia, let's talk about stubble burning. Diwali is round the corner, and instead of focusing on celebrations, I think all residents of Delhi and NCR are more concerned about stubble burning. What are organizations doing per se to address this issue? Are there any initiatives being taken?
Sure. So again, I would like to put in this three bucket, technical, financial, and social, just to make it simple. So technically, a lot of initiative has been started, whether to transform paddy straw into biogas or per se even for other biofuel. Not only that, there are a lot of alternate utilization like mushroom farming.
Also utilization of crop residue.
Indeed. I'm talking about paddy straw crop residue only. So what we can do with that technically. So, I mean, the issue is not that there is no technical solution. The issue is that you have to really take action within 2 weeks or let's say 15 days or something like this, because they have to really make the field ready and start sowing for the next one. So that's the main problem, the time frame. This is where we really need to bring all the machineries on ground within a stipulated time. Otherwise, for farmers, it's easier to burn that. So if I think from the farmer perspective, if I would be the farmer, I need my land ready as soon as possible. That's why I burn it out. So now coming to the second part, the financial part, Government of India and especially the state government as well, they are trying to take a lot of measures. Now we have CSCs, custom hiring centers. Government is giving incentive on equipment. Now there are few entrepreneurs, they are coming up Uber kind of model that you can rent the equipment. But at the end of the day, I think the max challenge is coming from the time frame perspective. So you have machinery which is being utilized only for a few weeks and it's just lying idle. But let me come to the third part. I think this is where the solution lies, the social part. Again, I would take a step back, think from the farmer perspective. If you see any business in the world, any business right now as well, it's between men and men. It's only the farmer, I repeat, it's only the farmer who does business between nature and man. So why will he listen to you? He will listen to nature. He will listen to his standard practices. He will listen to his own experience. So we need to understand from the farmer perspective how exactly he wants, whether it is in form of mulching, whether it is in form of some alternate utilization. So I think this is where the key lies. We need to think from the farmer perspective to bring a solution.
Mr. Rastogi, how can we, in fact, look towards attracting more investment when it comes to using technology to meet the green targets?
I think the regulatory landscape and the policy making has been very supportive to favor
Is it supportive enough?
Yeah, it is. It is. And in fact, it is by design that the kind of capacity addition that we have seen, we are sitting at about 30 gigawatts addition every year and a 50 gigawatt being tendered now. And there is already a sort of backlog on the absorption side. The tendering and award is happening. And we see that there is a lag on the from the side of the power utilities to absorb that kind of a capacity. So that is the kind of thrust with which things are happening. See, the cost of capital is also very important in absorption of technology. One, by regulation, we have to define consumptions and we have to provide pathways for the energy guzzler industries like cement, refinery, petrochemicals, like that, which is, I believe, is a work in progress and is likely to hit soon. But on the green hydrogen part, we have seen PLI programs, we have seen e-mobility PLI programs. So that is adding very well to the overall landscape. In terms of the cost of capital, the kind of, if we look at certain estimates, by 2030 we need 18 to 20 lakh crores only for green technologies. And we are not including e-mobility here, we are not including green hydrogen here. So easily by 2030, probably we need something like 25 to 30 lakh crores.
All right.
And there was a study done within the country wherein what kind of capital has this been financed out of domestic capital or it has been financed out of capital from foreign sources, and it was seen that only 17% of the credit has come from foreign sources. So cost of capital also is important and the amount of capital is also very important. In G20 presidency, India has recommended that the multilateral development banks globally should triple their commitment, which is currently of the order of $100 billion US.
That's not just heartwarming, but deeply encouraging
to $300 billion US per year, along with grant components of $93 billion US every year.
I'm running short of time. I'll have to give Dr. Mathai closing thoughts from you. When it is time about talking about greening initiatives, take us through what is the impact on the balance sheets and how are companies' bottom lines, in fact, performing when you talk about meeting those green initiatives?
That is exactly that, trillion-dollar question. And I'm happy to share, I'm happy to say that I can summarize by saying that serving the people, serving the society is perhaps the most profitable thing on earth. So you can say the trajectory that we have been seeing in the energy sector. You see that we have been thinking about solar energy coming at a very high cost and then people were afraid whether it is sustainable. But today, we find that the solar energy is today available at half the price of that of coming from the fuel, fossil fuels. And now, as per the study by Terry, say by 2030, this is going to become, per unit cost is going to be near about ₹1.90. So it's going to come. Even if you look at the battery storage, which is currently about 28 rupees per unit today, it's perhaps will become around 11 rupees by 2030. So the economies of scale and the use of innovation, even like, say, usage of batteries, even old car batteries, if we use it, those kind of, or even your electric vehicles, if you can charge back during the night, supply it to the grid on the back, this kind of innovative technology can take you to a very, very profitable route. As on today, the balance sheet is looking very, very bright because there are incentives available. There are incentives to manufacturing. There are incentives for ISTS waiver and things like that on the renewable energy. And the future, such things may continue for some more time. And by the time, the economy of scale will bring a lot of profitability.
All right. As Dr. Mathai, you rightly said that it is the most profitable thing to do, which is to serve the society. I'd like to end with those thoughts. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining in on News 18 Green Ribbons Champions of 2024. It was a pleasure having you here. Thank you. It's sweet.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, Akanksha. As an anonymous African proverb wisely states, and I quote, "The sun does not forget a village just because it's small." In the same spirit, our corporate houses and diversified conglomerates are uniting to celebrate sustainability and recognize the unwavering commitment of those dedicated to preserving our planet. Before we end, I want to again extend heartfelt gratitude to our partners, our on-ground partners, Sampurna Advertising and Power Grid, our jute partner, National Jute Board, and associate partners, Gale and Reliance Industries Limited. Your support has made this event possible. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and congratulations once again to all our green champions. A big round of applause once again, and with that, I would also request all of you to please proceed for dinner. Thank you.